10 o'clock, the BBC News on BBC One with Rita Chakrabarti.
Still no respite for storm-battered Britain as heavy rain and gales again hit the north. For 12 passengers on this stranded bus in Ayrshire, a dramatic airlift by helicopter to safety.
The water came in the bus, it came up and up, got to the windows, and it was just like big waves. You could see the current. It was very, very scary.
In the Scottish Borders, attempts to reinforce defences with a danger-to-life flood warning issued for the River Tweed. Back from his break, the Environment Agency chairman returns from Barbados to meet victims of the floods. The American actor Bill Cosby arrives in court in the US charged with sexual assault. And England's cricketers beat South Africa by 241 runs to win the first test in Durban. Good evening. A huge storm, the third to hit the UK in a month, has been battering parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland and Northern England, bringing yet more flooding. Storm Frank blew in overnight, causing high winds and persistent rain. Dumfries and Galloway and Aberdeenshire bore the brunt. In South Ayrshire, 12 people had to be winched to safety by helicopter after their bus was stranded in floodwater. We have two reports tonight, one from Croston in Lancashire, where earlier today 3 severe flood warnings were in place. But first, the situation in Dumfries, where the River Nith has burst its banks. Kevin Keane reports.
Nobody can say they weren't warned, but some still needed a last-minute lift to dry land anyway. The River Nith rose rapidly. It floods in this part of town a lot, but rarely like this, with up to 120 millimetres of rain forecast over 24 hours. At the town's marina, the quayside vanished from sight, boarding becoming a risky business. Well, this river has now doubled in width, and in terms of intensity, it's much bigger. It's an impressive sight that people have come down here to see, but if you own one of the businesses on the opposite side of the river there, then you'll not be impressed one bit by what's happening. Earlier, property owners did what they could, but with a strong sense that it was all in vain.
Well, I just got to try and get everything off the ground as high as you can. And the boys and that, the locals, they're quite good, gives a hand. So everybody just mucks in.
But by mid-afternoon, the flood was lapping at dozens of businesses. A saving grace is that few residential properties have been affected, but it's not over yet.
Some of the businesses will suffer badly, some will struggle to get going again. There'll be a huge clean-up exercise. We'll all work together on that to clean the place back up.
Further afield, Newton Stewart in southwest Scotland was the first place to see evacuations. People tried to salvage what they could. At Daly in Ayrshire, police said 10 passengers were airlifted from this bus, 3 children among them. Their rescue filmed from afar. Who'd have foreseen this end to a routine shopping trip?
The driver seemed to think it was okay enough to get through the flood, but we got stuck. The water came in the bus, it came up and up, got to the windows, and it was just like big waves. You could see the current. It was very, very scary.
At Ballater, near the Queen's Balmoral residence, the raging River Dee left a trail of destruction, forcing hundreds to leave their homes and seek refuge. And in Peebles, in the Borders, the speed with which the water rose was a surprise, even to those who thought they'd seen it all.
It's come up very, very quick. I mean, I'm Peebles born and bred, and I've never, ever seen it as high as this before. Never.
Tonight the floodwaters are still high. Only tomorrow's daylight will truly reveal what damage has been caused. Well, the River Nith here is now receding and people are already returning to their properties to check on them. But most of the attention is now focusing further north in Aberdeenshire, where hundreds are spending the night out of their homes. Some being put up in local rest centres, but some in Ballater being put up in the local army barracks. And that's a barracks that's normally there to provide protection to the Queen when she's at Balmoral.
Kevin, many thanks. Kevin Keane there. Well, after many questions in the last few days about the adequacy of the UK's flood defences, the chairman of the Environment Agency, Sir Philip Dilley, said he'd be visiting flood victims. He's come in for criticism for being on holiday in the Caribbean during some of the worst storms in years. The people of Croston in Lancashire have had to endure 2 of them and were braced today for the second flood in a week. There were, as we heard, 3 severe warnings in place there, indicating danger to life. Here's Robert Hall.
2 miles outside Croston, under darkening skies, the giant pumps rumbled back into action, shifting floodwater off farmland to make room for more. Although Storm Frank didn't deliver significant heavy rain to this part of Lancashire, it has grounded the helicopter, which was due to continue the job of plugging a breach in the river defences about half a mile behind me. The damage is virtually inaccessible by land, but this afternoon volunteers from a local rescue team used their specialist tracked vehicles to reach the breached defences and assess the remaining threat.
The storm today hasn't helped us with that. You know, the high winds have meant it's been too strong to get a helicopter out. That's the only way we can move these large sandbanks at the moment. But we will be continuing to get that done over the next few days.
In the village, news that the storm had tracked further north was welcome, but the calls for help were still being answered. One urgent call came from this nursing home. Its kitchen flooded, its power disrupted. Donations of fresh water and food were there within hours.
Everybody of all ages and from all walks of life have come in and helped and asked what they can do to help. I've never known a spirit like it.
The plight of flood victims has led to criticism of Sir Philip Dilley, chairman of the Environment Agency, back today from a Christmas holiday in the Caribbean. Should he perhaps have returned earlier?
So was a beach really the best place to be managing this crisis from for the last week or so?
I've been in very close contact with a whole number of people, the chief executive who's running the organisation.
By this evening, the Environment Agency had published images of Sir Philip visiting troops in York. The press had not been invited. A few miles away, the Environment Secretary, in Tadcaster to see the town's badly damaged bridge, agreed that the agency's chief executive had visited flood-hit areas over Christmas. Liz Truss said a plan to reunite the 2 halves of the town was now under discussion.
I've met people in the town who just want this back up and running. They want their lives sorted out as soon as possible, and that's our priority to do that.
Back in Croston, there is still a reassuring presence on the main street. Tomorrow, the clean-up can resume, but there'll be more storms to weather in the weeks and months ahead. Robert Hall, BBC News.
Well, the relentless storms which have swept across the UK this month meant it was a record-breaking December for rainfall in many parts of northern England, Scotland and Wales. It's meant the potential impact of climate change is again under scrutiny. Our science editor David Shookman looks now at what's causing the recent extreme